G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle, and this is a follow-up episode on my list building considerations for the Solar Auxilia. First things first, a slight correction. I did mention damage to the occupants upon the destruction of their vehicle. I had an AP value listed in there. I just confused it with blasts and templates. There should be no AP value in there, and it was correctly pointed out in the comments of the video, but I wanted to put that in there anyway, that was my mistake. You do take the strength 8 hit, but there is no AP associated with it. I was just thinking of Medusas and Basilisks at the time and had a brain fart. Anyway, on to the rest of the video. So, people pointed out things like this particular unit and this particular combination can achieve these kind of results, and I think you're being really hard on the Solar Auxilia. Other people point out things like, well, you know, you're assuming that you're going to have bad rolls as Solar Auxilia and good rolls as Marines, or that Marines are going to take all the artillery and such and such and such. These are not invalid points. However, and here's the however part. Right at the start of the video, I said something very important. That is that we're not trying to create win-at-all-costs min-max armies. I'm trying to give you practical advice of what is best bang for your buck. As in, hey, you're going to spend money on this. Let's try and come up with a reasonable force that's the cheapest possible that you can buy directly from the company, because they're releasing a bunch of kits in plastic right now that is going to have people come in and buy them from the company. That's just the way things go. Okay, we're not talking about third-party parts and conversions and alternate miniatures and all this sort of stuff. So with that in mind, let's take a look at some of those thoughts in more depth. The first one being, well, the Marine player is probably not going to be loaded up with Medusas and Basilisks and all that, because they're not very good against other things, therefore the Marine player won't have them unless he's tailoring against your list. That's fair, but you don't know that when you're building a list. And you have to assume worst case scenarios when you build lists, because that's the reality of warfare. You know, we don't telegraph the attacks we're going to make, right? So we're not going to go out there and explain in depth to people like, hey, here's all the stuff I'm going to bring for my list. Now tailor your Solar Auxilia with the understanding that I'm bringing no artillery. That is not how it works. Also, there are certain factions. Let's take an extreme example, the Salamanders. You go up against a Salamanders player, they don't need to bring any artillery, because they're going to have Strength 6 AP4 templates coming out the wazoo. And again, there is nothing you can do about that beyond trying to swamp them in numbers, and that's a battle you cannot win. I actually got my Salamanders army out, and I grabbed a bunch of militia stuff I had and some other stuff and proxied it to get some numbers up. And yeah, no, that Salamander's army can remove a couple of 100 models per turn once it gets in close. That's 30 Pyroclasts, a bunch of upgraded heavy flamers on vehicles. So it's not just blasts and templates, but also further to that, I mentioned in general Strength 6 AP4. Strength 6 AP4 is everywhere this edition, and I mean everywhere. It makes up over half of all the weapons in the game, for starties at least. And you can go and actually run the numbers on that if you're really keen, because you've got things like assault cannons, auto cannons, missile launchers, las cannons, multi-melters. You've got all of that sort of stuff. You also have a bunch of Volkite weapons that, although they lack the AP, they have the high strength and the deflect rate. So although you might get an armor save, it does negate the effects of damage mitigation rolls like Feel No Pain. Those are all massive considerations to take into account when you're creating an army like Solar Auxilia. If you're playing friendly games and your local community has an understanding that, you know, you're bringing Solar Auxilia and you're going to be a much weaker army, and they want to play a game on easy mode with you, that's fine. But a Marine player does not have to tailor his list much at all to be effective against Solar Auxilia. However, the reverse of that is that the Solar Auxilia does have to tailor their list to fight other factions in 2.0, unless you're playing its militia and you're having a toughness 3 competition. Cool, all the credit, all the power to you if you are that way inclined. Now, I also mentioned that the Dracosan as a transport vehicle is not very good because of the fact that if you fill it with 22 guys, that's 22 guys who are probably going to be taking a strength 8 hit upon the destruction of that vehicle. And several point out things like, hey, you can fill that thing full of Valataris and jump out 20 Valataris at point blank. Yeah, if I know you're sending a Dracosan at me with 20 Valataris in it, do you think I'm going to be unreactive and unresponsive to that? Again, this is a war game, and you need to think the other person is not going to let you do that if they have a modicum of sense. They're going to go, let's see, that's far more dangerous than your lasgun unit, and it's a high strength weapon, it's got deflagrate, you have quite a lot of it, that's your more elite infantry, they're in a vehicle, if I blow it up, I'm going to get a bunch of free hits on your squad. I think I'm going to blow that vehicle up. It's not like your vehicle's going to return fire at me. None of its weapons that I'm scared of are going to be able to reaction. So immediately, that helps me out. There are other things that I can do to you to really mess up your time. I can throw some phosphex your way, a little bit of difficult, dangerous terrain, never hurt anyone, except for all the people that die in it annually. Rest in peace. In short, the Dracosan, for the amount of points you're going to spend on it, is a higher tier skill cap to get the points back, is what I'm getting to. We're talking, like I said in the disclaimer I put right at the start of yesterday's video, we're talking about a person who's not used to playing this army, they're picking it up off the street, they're not a seasoned Solar Auxilia player, and they want to be able to make it perform. The advice people are giving in the comments is great for those who are used to playing Solar Auxilia. It is not great for those in that situation. Then we move on to things like, hey, you can take a whole bunch of Plasma Gun, Veteran Command Squad, etc. Totally agree. In fact, I think it's one of the more viable strategies that you can do if you're running the Solar Auxilia. One of those things that I've trialed myself, and it does work by dint of sheer numbers. And sure, you lose a few guys to gets hot every now and then, so be it, right? The problem is, again, this is not an army for the person off the street. Where are the plasma guns? Okay? You don't have them. That means you have to convert them. And that means you need to convert, 30 models to plasma weapons, give or take? Think about that, 30 models. What is that going to look like? What is it going to look like for your bank balance? Okay? Maybe someone out there has already got the new plastic Valataris, they've done 3D scan, measured up the parts, they've made them a whole new set of arms of plasma bits, and you can print them to your heart's content and just convert those plasma bits on. Great. Again, doesn't help the prospective player who is not used to this game system and hasn't hopped in yet. That's slightly down the road for them. And even if they do understand, like, okay, I can take 30 the veteran command with plasma, cool, but where are they getting all their plasma from? Are they going to convert it? Are they going to pay for 30 Valataris and the Valataris command section and do that? Like, how much money do you want to spend on this Solar Auxilia army? And this is a key point. It's the best chance at getting games on the table that aren't utterly miserable to play for the least amount of physical expenditure, essentially. And these are all huge considerations. And it's part of why, I point out the Aurochs. The thing that hurts it is it's expensive because it's resin. It would be expensive in plastic too, though. And you want a lot of them. A lot of those running 10-man squads of things like Volkites around the table is a pretty doable tactic. Getting Dracosans and running those around the table, well, you can get 6 Aurochs for the price of a Dracosan in points. So instead of transporting 6 10-man squads, I can transport one big 20-man squad. Is that worth it? I don't know that it is. So that's where a lot of the list building considerations come in. And it's not that the people giving these ideas are wrong, it's all about the context of the ideas. It would be the same as if I did my Getting Started series on the Legiones Astartes. And when I was playing something like Salamanders, and we looked at their rules, I just said, well, don't worry about taking anything, just take Pride of the Legion, fill it full of Fire Drakes, take a bunch, or take, better yet, take the Covenant of Fire, Rite of War, take only Pyroclasts and Fire Drakes and Dreadnoughts, and profit. Because that's essentially what you do when you take that Rite of War. It turns one of the worst legions in 30k into a pretty solid legion by min-maxing on what it does best. Same as if I was to do Imperial Fists. I could just say, you know what, run Stone Gauntlet, buy 2 squads of 15 Phalanx Warders, some Apothecaries with boarding shields, put them in with the Phalanx Warders, then buy yourself 10 Cataphracti Terminators with Power Fists and run them as Huskarls, take a standard Praetor with Teleport, in with those Huskarls, and give the guy a Thunderhammer and a Storm Shield of his own, and give him the Child of Terror, where the whole squad's going to get +1 weapon skill, and then spend the rest of the points on Dreadnoughts and Tartarus Terminators with Storm Shields and Thunderhammers. And it would be an army that would beat 98% of other armies in the game, and it requires no brain power. But that is not what I tell people to collect in the Getting Started series. I'll say things like, get a couple of these tactical squads, buy a couple of these particular transports, look at this tank, you know? Because the idea is, I'm taking a person who's not played the Heresy before, and I want to give them something viable. I don't want to give them something that, like if I go across the table from the Imperial Fist player, even with my Salamanders, I'm taking like all my Pyroclasts and Fire Drakes, and I go across the table from that Phalanx Water list, I'll just be like, yeah, I'm done. I don't want to play this game. Because that would be miserable to play against. Because like, oh, it's a whole army of 3-up and 4-up invul saves and re-rolling invul saves and 4-up feel no pains. And yeah, no, I don't want a single itty-bitty piece of that action. Okay? And this is, I think, very true for many people. And the Solar Auxilia falls in the same boat. And I notice people saying, you know, what about if I take, say, Malkadors? What does the Leman Russ really offer over the Malkador? Higher front armor facing, smaller side armor profile, twin linking of the Vanquisher. Yes, the Malkador, if you upgrade it, can have less cannon side sponsons. So, in theory, it has slightly more firepower than Leman Russ. But you're paying an awful lot more points for it, and you can take far less of them for a single heavy support slot. That has a cumulative effect on the army. I'm not saying don't take any of these models, though. That's the one point I really want to stress, is I'm not saying to people, don't take these models. If you see something in Solar Auxilia you think's going to be fun and you want to try it, go for it. It's your army. You're the one playing it. You're the one who wants to have fun, and I strongly support that. I empathize with that. However, there's another one of those howevers in here. However, I am not responsible for you taking those things. If you take them and you, let's say you pick one of the Lords of War and you pick something like the Macarius Omega. I just love Plasma, I think it looks cool. And then you play the thing and then you go, I spent hundreds of dollars on something that is completely useless, and it died without even earning a quarter of its points back, and that was after 4 turns. Then you go, yeah, that's gonna suck. That's gonna suck no matter where you came from. Right? We're not trying to min-max our list here. We're not looking for win at all costs. We're looking for what is viable for someone who is 30 curious, who has never played it before, and they're coming in, or maybe they've been playing Marines for a long time and they want to do something different. They think Solar Auxilia look cool because they do. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to build a Solar Ox army, especially now they're in plastic. I think that's a lot more approachable than when they're in resin. Let's make it happen. This is the starting point for them. We can go into complex list building and such down the line, sure. But like I said at the very, very start, first couple of sentences of yesterday's video, this is for the beginner. It's a getting started video. Anyway, I hope that clarifies some of the points, and you know, those who had points that they made on the video, like I said, you're not wrong. It's just about the context. We're not trying to teach people like, well, you know, if you take this, this, and this, you can get Leadership 11 Stubborn. Did you think about that? Yep. Cool. Min-max it. great, and your own time. Make with the Outer Circle. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.